Please welcome Research Director, Wolf's Neck Center, co-founder FarmHack, and co-founder FarmOS, Dorn Cox.
Hi, my name is Dorn Cox, and I'm a co-founder of FarmHack. FarmHack is a community project, an open source community and network that links farmers together with non-farmer allies to come up with creative solutions to complex agricultural challenges. I grew up on a farm, but it wasn't until I met my wife and came back to the farm that I came to understand the deep connection and underlying power of open source technology and agriculture, and particularly the necessity, actually, of open source to achieve and to practice the kind of agriculture I wanted to practice, regenerative agriculture. I became increasingly impressed with the innovation that happens on farms every day, on every farm, and the potential for sharing across the rich and diverse global network and to democratize the code for regenerative agriculture. I came to see agriculture not as an isolated rural enterprise like any other business, but rather something different. A multi-generational team effort, a shared human endeavor, a public science that defines who we are in our environment and who we are with each other. Leonardo da Vinci said that we know more about the heavens above than the soil beneath our feet. And yet, in the last decades, we've begun to unlock the secrets of soil. In every handful of living, healthy soil, there are more organisms than there are people on Earth. And every seed we exchange represents not just millions of years of evolution, but from a civilization's perspective, it's the original open source. It contains our choices, our environments, our cultures that are cumulative. And so we now have the capacity to extend that same metaphor to our own technology. We can capture and exchange the code for regenerative agriculture in something about the size of a seed. So what could be more valuable than sharing and cross-pollinating that code? Because the stakes are huge. The choices that we make in agriculture will have ripple effects for generations to come. It will affect the quality of our water, the quality of our air. It will affect the abundance and diversity of the species that we share the planet with. It will affect the nature of conflict. It will affect our resilience to floods, to droughts, to fire, and it will affect the climate. It's going to affect not just the abundance, but the possible scarcity that will be leaving the next generation. So we need everyone everywhere to have access to the best possible agricultural knowledge, because we know that we can draw down atmospheric carbon and turn it into healthy soil faster than we thought possible. And just small changes in our soils can have large effects, because there is more carbon in our soils than there is in our atmosphere. So just a 1% change in our agricultural soils over the next 20 years, 1% increase in organic matter, can put us on the path to pre-industrial atmospheric carbon levels. And that same 1% increase acts like a sponge and increases the water holding capacity of that soil by as much as 20,000 gallons. So what we need to do to adapt to climate change also will mitigate climate change and also regenerate and restore our environments. It's a large-scale effort, to be sure, and yet I believe that it's achievable because it's based on the same biological principles that created a livable climate in the first place. And what could be more urgent? What could be more tested? What could be more tested and have more history than the process of photosynthesis, of taking sunlight and turning it into living roots that feed microbes that build soil. And what could be more urgent? So the solution is management, but management is people combined with knowledge. So people are part of the solution if we can create solutions that are smaller and more accessible to get appropriate site-specific knowledge to take action on the ground. This is the merging of hardware and software and transforming it into action on the ground, into nature. And so we have the opportunity to transform a tragedy of the commons, of an economy based on competition for scarce resources, and translate that into a triumph of the commons based on abundance from knowledge. Of taking that which has been invisible in nature and turning it into something that's visible, and therefore the unvalued into the valuable. We can be dominated by this same technology, or we can use it to understand and improve our shared environment. Because the tools we create are a reflection of our ecological, our economic, and our social systems. We can choose to democratize them. And we can move from a vision of precision agriculture to decision agriculture, from large-scale mechanization and consolidation to one based on embracing the complexity of the underlying systems, of democratizing and distributing and adapting and innovating. So what questions are we going to use, and what tools are we going to use, and what questions are we going to ask with this new power? Because agriculture is a culture. It's the culture of the field. It's a biological culture, it's a social culture, it's an economic culture. It's also the culture and joy of observing and managing the small details of nature and finding meaningful work with friends and family and community, eating and drinking and creating. It has the potential to build bridges across rural and urban divides, across geographic, language, and cultural boundaries, rooted in our ability to create abundance from scarcity, in creating environments where 12 species grew where none grew before. It's a circulatory system of ideas, information, and inspiration, created by all and given to all. This concept has bubbled up throughout history as an aspirational goal, and yet we have new tools, powerful tools, to harness the governance of nature, to grow healthy soil, to grow healthy plants, to grow healthy people. What are we going to do? What are we going to choose to do with that new power? So I invite you to create a technology-enabled collaboration. I invite you to be inspired to democratize access to environmental and agricultural knowledge, because there's a role for all of us in understanding better how this world works. So I invite you to participate and support the projects that we're building at Wolf's Neck Center for Agriculture and the Environment. Building a regenerative farm network built on open source hardware and software, and an open technology ecosystem for agricultural management. Because the future of agriculture that will support all of us will also need to look like all of us and be produced and created by all of us. Thank you.